Hi, we are here with Yosi Pinto from the SD Association. Hello, Yosi.
Hello.
And thank you for joining us here on the LensVid studio. And we have a few questions for you regarding SD memory cards, SD technology, and a few new things that you recently, I think, announced. Let's start with a simple one. How did you become the chairman of the board for the SD Association? And for people who are not familiar with this organization, what it is that you're actually doing?
Yeah. Okay, so first about the SD Association. SD Association is a standard organization that started in the year 2000. Together, initiated by SanDisk, Panasonic, and Toshiba, who started this organization with the first SD card spec. And since then, we have today about 850 companies that together continuing and developing the standard of SD and also promoting it in different ways around the world.
How did you become the chairman of the SD Association?
So this is as part of the organization. We have we have a technical committees, marketing committees, and we have a board of directors. And in this board of directors today we have 12 companies. It's varied, and every executive member actually can ask to be there, and they are chosen by the executive members. About 50 companies today are executive members, and once you become a part of this board, the board elect the chairman of the board. And I was elected. I was sent by my company, SanDisk, Western Digital today, to represent them in the board. And the board elected me to become the chairman in 2012. And since then, I was elected. It is a 2 years period. And since then, actually, just last month, I was elected again for another 2 years period to continue.
And I think that you had some
history
in the SD, the development of the SD memory cards.
Yes, exactly. Actually, yes, I'm kind of closing a loop these years. I started in the 99 to work at, in 98 I started to work at SanDisk, and then I started to work on this project together with Panasonic and Toshiba. And I worked in Israel on the first development of the first controller of SD. And it was very exciting period. And in the year 2000, when the SDA was initiated, I became to be the spec working group chair. And then I worked 2 years and stopped. Did other things at SanDisk and.
But basically, you helped develop the first SD memory cards.
Yes, for the first several years.
Okay, very interesting. Let's talk about something more specific. One of the things I think that really seems to confuse a lot of people when it comes to SD memory cards and SD memory card specifications is all the different speed classes that you have. Originally, I think you had 4, 6, and 10, right? And then you have the UHS-I, II, and we'll talk about this in a second. You also introduced the UHS class 3, and you also have the video speed classes, which is the V30, 60, and V90. So why do you need all these different classes? Aren't they somehow redundant, or they have some crosses between them?
We are getting a lot of complaints about it. I'm reading also a lot about it. By the way, as the SD Association, we have a lot of material in our website, so you can reach it in sdcard.org. And one of the things that we produce, and we also give in a different events or whatever, we have this small brochure that you have a nice picture here, so you can show it to your audience. About all the various speed classes.
Okay, we'll put it on the screen.
Yeah. So indeed, we have speed classes. The first speed classes, which were marked like C and the number inside, and then we have the UHS speed classes. And just recently, 2-3 years ago, we introduced the video speed classes. First of all, the good part, the good side of the speed classes, is that it allows to assure a specific minimum level of sequential write performance for a product, for a card. And this is especially required when you do a video recording, and this is something that you want to assure when you sell a product that can do a video recording, so you want to assure that it will be that
will meet the minimum standard.
Yes,
We're talking just write to the card, not from the
Yes.
card to the computer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why it was introduced in the past. And when a certain camera manufacturer want to assure certain performance, he write on the user manual whatever that it is required. If you want to write in this resolution, you need to have at least this type of card performance. So this is the good side of that. The reason that we had this different type that we have today, these various types of speed classes, is because of the evolution of the memory technology. The difference between these speed classes is the different way that you actually access the card and memory, different block sizes, for example. Okay? Because of the different technologies that were evolved through the years, we had to change in order to take advantage of the new way, of the new structure of the memory, and to be able to write it in the most optimized way, you had to write in a different method.
Okay.
So that's why the speed classes names will change, and at the moment that, for example, you support the card support certain, like the new video speed classes, the host need to support this as well. The camera need to support this. Otherwise, you're not really taking advantage, because the camera needs to write at the same new method to the card in order to take advantage of this.
So let me just ask you a follow-up question. That do the new cameras, specific cameras, support the V system for the video classification? So there are cameras who support V90, for example, or how does it work? Because I've never seen this mentioned on the camera specification before.
Video speed classes, it's slowly coming actually from the camera manufacturers. In the card, you see it already several years. In cameras, it took for a while. I think that we didn't have test equipment that you can test yourself, and this is something that was introduced only last year. Okay. So, but there are actually there is a pressure from the camera manufacturer, from these test vendors, to supply the testers to do this.
The testers, you're talking about testing equipment, or you're talking
equipment and cards. So for the cards, there is already something like that for several years, but for hosts, it's not.
That's interesting. So you're saying that maybe in a year or two, maybe in the near future, we will see cameras with V90, or maybe beyond that, markings that that this camera actually supports.
Yes, sure.
Oh, that's interesting.
Just you mentioned V60 and V90 support is a video. Those are video classes only for UHS-II cards.
Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
And
a V30 and below is UHS-I. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay, and talking about the UHS classification, you introduced, I think, in early 2017, the UHS-III. Now, a lot of people, I think, a lot of users or photographers are not familiar with it, because as far as I know, there are no cards, and even more importantly, there are no cameras which actually support this standard. So the standard itself, the maximum read-write speed is what? 600 megabytes per second. So it's twice that of UHS-II, right?
Yes, but it's bidirectional. Yeah, you can write 600 megabytes per second in each direction. Read and write.
Oh, that's interesting. So how can you use it?
Actually in cameras probably not.
Yeah, it's not really that relevant, but okay. But are we going to actually see in the near future cameras and cards which support this standard? Because as we're going to speak about in a few minutes, you have a new standards, even newer, which is called SD Express. Yes. So maybe manufacturers or camera manufacturers are going to jump straight to SD Express and basically move on, skip the UHS-III specification.
Well, yes, you're right. There is, first of all, about the actual products. Unfortunately, I probably will will not be able to comment in detail or even bring some information that maybe I may know, but because here I'm representing the association, and as association I'm responsible on the standard organization, and we are all working together to make the standard and then compete each other when we do the product. So in order to ask when the products will be ready or whatever, this is something to ask the camera manufacturers or the card manufacturers. But relating the standard, yes, I mean it's what we are doing. We don't have usually. It's not a regular company, it's a standard organization, right? We are getting whatever we develop is inputs that we are getting or requests that we are getting from our members. Members are bringing their request to standardize certain feature. It needs to pass. I mean, we need to have some kind of consensus, or sometimes we are voting on standardizing something or not, and then we proceed and do the standardization. So at that time, when we decided to do the UHS-III, it was 2015, something like that. Yes, after the UHS-II was already mature and was accepted by several camera manufacturers, and there was a request to have higher speed, mainly for the imaging market for camera. This is actually the only market that I think adopted also UHS-II. So we did this standardization. There were a few companies that asked for that, and they drove this, and we standardized that. And what happened to be that at the beginning of 2017, when we introduced the UHS-III standard, at the same time we started to standardize the SD Express, which was not necessarily targeted to the imaging market, at least at that time. And it was driven by other group of companies that looked for a card that have a more sophisticated protocol than the SD have, and higher speeds, and protocol that mainly support multi-processing capabilities. Things that neither UHS-I, 2, or 3 can do, because the UHS-II and 3 is just improving the sequential write, but the same protocol of SD is transferred over this hardware layer. So we're still using quite old type of protocol in UHS.
Currently, your largest capacity memory card, or not yours, but currently the largest capacity SD card that we know of is 1 terabyte, which is actually quite a lot if you think about the form factor that we're talking about. Do you think that we will see significantly larger capacities of SD memory cards in the near future? Because I think that even if you're talking about maybe 8K, which is currently the highest resolution for video shooting, even if you're talking 8K 60 frames per second, I think that 1 terabyte will be enough for, I don't know, an hour or so. Maybe you can you have a better calculation, but we're talking about a lot of space for such a small card. So have we reached a plateau, at least for the time being, or are we going to see larger capacity cards?
Okay, let's start from the standard. Okay. From the standard until recently, we had a limitation. It was just the limit of the standard because of the address field defined in the standard. It was limited up to 2 gigabyte, up to 2 terabytes. Sorry.
Okay.
Up to 2 terabyte of memory, and at the time that this standard was defined, 2 terabyte seems like something which we never reached and looked enough. But since recently we saw that 1 terabyte is really coming, and so we introduced. It was at the same time that we introduced the SD Express in June last year. Also the SD UC. It's another
okay.
Like after we have XC, now we have the UC. UC is ultra capacity, and ultra capacity is the range of cards which are 2 terabyte and above, or above 2 terabytes. Sorry.
Okay.
Above 2 terabyte up to 128 terabyte. And now we think that hopefully 128 terabyte will be sometime in the future and not so soon. But maybe we will be surprised. I don't know, new memory technologies. So this is from the standard side. From product Yes, you're right. Just recently in Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, it was Western Digital who introduced micro SD with 1 terabyte.
So even smaller. Yeah,
yes,
it's amazing.
Actually, 1 terabyte of card was introduced a year or 2 years ago by SanDisk.
Okay.
But it was never productized. I mean, I never saw that in the market.
Yeah.
But the micro SD was introduced not just by Western, just to be fair, also Micron introduced that at the same time. And I assume that probably we'll see soon more companies, I mean, the card manufacturers that doing that. What happened to be like a few years ago, where SanDisk and other companies, SanDisk I think started with that, it was 128 gigabyte of first micro SD cards. It was quite expensive, a few $100s, and we thought that nobody will actually buy it. It was kind of just showing that the company is like in the front of everybody. But it was found to be quite popular, and there was a quite high demand from that, surprisingly.
From the mobile market, mostly, I think.
Yeah, mostly mobile market, like extending your internal memory to have more memory. That's the main thing. And then we had the 256, and I think most of the companies today, the card manufacturers produce 256 and 512. And 512 also, by most of the big card manufacturers produce also 512 gigabyte.
Yeah.
And now we have this 1 terabyte. So it looks like there is a demand. If you ask for what, I don't know. It looks like.
But you mostly talked about the mobile market. I'm talking about the photography market.
Yes, in photography. Yeah, actually, I heard that most of the professional photographers actually prefer to have even a few small type of cards, just to be more on the safe side, and
I agree.
You don't want to lose all your pictures, so that's what practically they are doing. But yeah, well, I can't tell more than that.
Yeah, we need to see what the market
looks like. There is a demand for that, especially for mobile and mobile computing, maybe.
Okay. Now let's talk about the SD Express that you have mentioned before. This is your newest standard. When was this announced?
In June last year, it was the full-size card SD Express, and last February in Mobile World Congress we introduced the micro SD Express card.
You were talking about 2019?
Yes.
Just recently?
Yeah.
Okay. So what can you tell me about this standard? How is it different than everything that we had until now with the SD memory cards?
Yeah. I think I would say that this is the biggest step that the SD standard did since the beginning. The big difference is, I mentioned that earlier, that the SD protocol is using, it's considered quite old already, even though it went through a few steps of performance during the years. But the actual protocol is little bit old, that you can send command after you complete the full operation of one command, you can go and do the second command after. So it introduced a lot of limitations, especially if you have multi-processing systems, and performance also limitation, because you are using what is called single-ended communication. In compared to the differential communication, which is used in the most modern interfaces like USB, PCIe, and others. So what we did here, the new thing, we adopted a new differential interface, which is the PCIe interface, very known interface used in computing for a lot of years. And in the last several years, it is used together with the upper layers protocol of NVMe, NVM Express. And it is used in all the SSD cards that we see, M.2 cards, which are used internally in tablets or whatever. And this is something which is really getting momentum and become the de facto standard for memories, for non-volatile memories. And so this is something that we adopted. And we actually adopted it in similar way that we introduced the UHS-II.
Okay.
We are using a second row of pins for this interface, while we still kept the first row of the SD interface. So in that way, we are keeping the full backward compatibility to UHS-I, but it's still up to 100 megabytes per second. So if somebody is buying this SD Express card, and you can still do interoperability. You can use it in your high-speed SD Express host, but you can take it out and then use it in your old equipment up to 100 megabytes per second, but it will still work fine. So
100, not 200. 100.
100.
Yeah.
100.
Okay.
Sorry.
UHS-I. Yeah.
Yes.
So in terms of so what is going to be new in terms of the user with the SD Express?
So the new protocol allows you higher speeds, like the PCIe that was adopted in the first version of the SD Express is what is called the Gen 3.
Okay.
It's up to 1 gigabyte per second, per second.
So compared to UHS-I, it's 10 times as fast,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And compared to UHS-II, it's about 5 times as fast,
yes,
I think. Yeah.
Yes, you can. There is a nice brochure that we did on that, and this is also.
I will show it on the screen.
That can that show all this comparison with other standards as well as the existing SD standards. Yeah.
So you have speed.
Yes, this is in terms of this is sequential performance, and the NVMe is a sophisticated protocol, as I said, which allows you a lot of queuing, like multiprocessing operations, which are open new opportunities or usages for a different type of applications.
Yeah, but I think that's for
imaging.
Yeah, but if for photography, I think it's less relevant. These aspects are less relevant. The most important aspect is basically the speed, right?
Yes, it may be less relevant, even though it's happened to be that even for photography, it's not just a single thing that you are writing. It's not just a picture. You write a lot of sideband information, which is written in parallel. But you're right. I think it's mainly maybe for other type of applications. Okay. But you can see that I think there are other standards like CF Express or other that using also PCIe NVMe and also going to imaging market. So imaging market is adopting this type of
protocol generally, across the board.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so just to be clear, we are talking about the SD Express is going to be backwards compatible with UHS-I, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's important. You can put it in any basically older cameras that will support it, and you can use it. And of course, people are probably going to buy it only when the actual cameras which support it will be inexistent, because otherwise it will be probably expensive, at least at the beginning.
Yeah, then you will not be able to take advantage of
the high speed. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So moving on, I think that many people were really hoping that a single protocol, a single memory card type will eventually prevail. And I think that this is actually not going, we're not seeing this. In the past, we had SD and CF, which were basically fighting for the internally between the camera manufacturers. And I think that SD typically, at least in the past, was for the consumer and prosumer, while the CF was at least considered to be more of a professional grade type of memory card. I'm not sure if this was always the case, but at least in part. And I think that some people were hoping that we will see maybe SD or a different standard come out as a single standard, but we didn't see this. What we're seeing now is that you have XQD, and now it is replaced by CF Express, and you have the SD Express. So everybody is moving, to a new generation, but we're still having two different memory types.
Yeah.
So do you think that in the future we will see SD Express for basically used for again, consumer and prosumer, while CF Express is going to be used mostly for professional, or is this division going to change?
Well, first of all, if you look into the history, I think in the year 2000, when the SD started, we had smart media. We had just a year or 2 years later, we had XD recording card or something like that. It was by Fujitsu. And smart media was by Toshiba, and we had memory stick by Sony. And we had this multimedia card. It was Siemens and
it was a whole mess.
Yeah, and we had
in the
SD.
beginning. Yeah,
and in the beginning we were really a lot of cards, and it happened to be that most of them disappeared. I think memory stick still continued for several years. I think until 2007, 8 or something like that, and then also stopped. And SD really became the main dominant card in the market for removable cards. In parallel to CF, you're right, CF along these years continued to be used for high-end cameras, while SD also, I think most of the cameras supporting SD, it's a very small portion that support CF today. And I can say, I mean, what maybe the good part is that both are, I mean, you said right that CF Express is also moved to use the PCIe NVMe as well as SD. So maybe the good part is that at least from the protocol side and from the hardware side, cameras will be able to support both, which is more easy for them. And what will be what the consumer will choose or the camera manufacturer will choose, it's hard to say.
Yeah. But we will probably continue to see at least 2 memory standards in the foreseeable future, at least so it seems.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to something a little bit into the future in terms of how do you see the market going on from now on? What do you expect in terms of the SD Express memory cards? Do you think that we will see them this year, maybe next year, and maybe when will camera manufacturers think about adopting them?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately I cannot comment in detailed things about products and product manufacturing. What I can say that at least as part of our participation in various trade shows, like we just recently did in Mobile World Congress Shanghai, and also Mobile World Congress Barcelona, and also in the Embedded World in Nuremberg, we had a big booth there, and we presented the SD Express demos that were presented by Western Digital today, and also the Phison presented the controller, like brochure of a controller that's supposed to be ready for usage in the beginning of next year. So I would assume that probably we will see sometime next year cards, at least. From host side, we hear things that are going on, so there probably will be some adoption in the mobile computing market interfaces, and maybe some gaming. I don't know yet about cameras, so it's hard for me to say exact.
So we're probably going to look at least a year and a half or something like that for cameras, maybe more.
Yeah.
If we looked at the past, I think that even UHS-II took some time before it was actually adopted in cameras.
Yes. So the big advantage here, that was the big advantage of also adopting this type of standard PCIe NVMe, that all the infrastructure, the interfaces were already developed. You can find them in the market. You can find the IPs. Like if somebody want to develop host to support PCIe NVMe, those are ready. They just need to adopt it into their product, and sometimes they even have it. For example, all the mobile and especially mobile computing, they already have PCIe interfaces, so it's very easy for them to adopt the new standard. All the test equipment is available for PCIe and NVMe, so it's not like we had with UHS-II that you had to develop everything from zero. So it's much more easy to adopt if somebody wants to adopt. And in general, we got quite a lot of very enthusiastic feedbacks from the people in those trade shows, and that we are going in the right direction, and I hope to see that this will be adopted much faster than the UHS-II.
We as well. Okay. Thank you, Yosi.
You're welcome. Thank you.